market also responded to new ways that wars are being fought. Think about this. Ukraine and Israel both able to attack within their enemy's borders. Drones, artificial intelligence, robots, that's going to dominate the battlefield. It's officially launched what they call Detachment 201, Executive Innovation Corps. Over the weekend, we had tech leaders from Palantir, Meta, OpenAI. They all became Army Reserve officers. This is huge. You don't know how big this is. The number one stock on the S&P 500 is Palantir.
Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. We are continuing to document the total takeover and capture of the federal government by the Silicon Valley tech oligarchs, although one could make the argument that Silicon Valley was always connected to the military-industrial complex. I think that it was quite telling seeing Alex Karp and Peter Thiel at Bilderberg earlier this month. And so this just continues, though. Silicon Valley executives have now been sworn in as U.S. Army lieutenant colonels. You couldn't make it up if you wanted to. In what feels like the plot twist of a dystopian sci-fi film, the U.S. Army just swore in 4 big tech executives as lieutenant colonels, despite the fact that they have 0 traditional military training and bypassing 16 ranks of career soldiers. June 13th, 2025, so less than 2 weeks ago, marks the formation of Detachment 201, the Army's Executive Innovation Corps. And it is interesting to me they're calling it Detachment 201. I immediately thought of Event 201. Where executives from Palantir, Meta, and OpenAI were handed shiny new uniforms and one of the highest officer ranks in the Army Reserve. The appointees are Shyam Sankar, the CTO of Palantir, Andrew Bosworth, the CTO of Meta, Kevin Weil, the CPO of OpenAI, and Bob McGrew, former Chief Research Officer of OpenAI. These guys now outrank thousands of veterans who spent decades earning their status through blood, sweat, and actual battlefield deployments. No Army fitness test was given to these men, no officer school, no boot camp. Instead, they were given a crash course in uniform etiquette and basic marksmanship, boot camp light. And if you're wondering why this is happening, here's the kicker. This move gives big tech insiders military-level access to classified projects without having to go through the lengthy security clearance process. OpenAI just landed a $200 million military contract days later, and Meta is already in bed with defense contractor Anduril. And remember, Palmer Luckey's Anduril got its foundations in Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. So Peter Thiel's venture capital invested in Anduril.
We don't have not enough weapons, not enough platforms to carry those weapons.
Conflict of interest, try full-blown institutional capture. This isn't innovation, it's techno-feudalism with a Pentagon badge. What does it mean when the people building surveillance infrastructure are also given command rank in the US military? It means the wall between private power and public force is being bulldozed in broad daylight. And like I said, that was kind of like a farce to begin with. This isn't about efficiency, it's about control. So I will include links in the video description so you can read more about that. The Jacobin publication, I know it's a left-wing, I think kind of like a Marxist publication, but they still sometimes put out some interesting stuff. They put out an article called Silicon Valley Was Woke, Now They Want Blood, that I thought was pretty interesting, talking about this same trend, right? The big data firm Palantir spent years developing lethal military technology. Now it's leading a transformation in Silicon Valley, with tech giants abandoning their progressive posturing to join the battle for American military supremacy. Last week, the Army announced the creation of Detachment 201, a new unit within the Army Reserve that will enlist tech executives as uniformed officers. Among the first enlistees was Shyam Sankar from Palantir, the trailblazer of Silicon Valley expansion into the military. Sankar wrote recently in the Free Press, quote, "A decade ago, it would have been unthinkable for so many tech heavyweights to openly align with the US military. Equally, it would have been out of character for the military to enlist the support of the nation's business elite, much less to create a special corps so they could deploy their technical talents in the service of the government. But a sea change has taken place in both places. Palantir was the forerunner of this effort. The story is integral to Palantir's self-conception. The big data firm, founded in the wake of 9/11 by Alex Karp, who is the son of Jewish communists who was trained at the Frankfurt School, and Peter Thiel, a so-called libertarian, has never been squeamish about aiding American efforts to establish and maintain global military hegemony.
And I see this question in every single thing we do. And by the way, not just in ICE, I see this with our work with clandestine services. I mean, our product is used on occasion to kill people.
As Karp tells it, Palantir stoically endured nearly 2 decades of suspicion in Silicon Valley until it helped form a new consensus. Karp says, "We were very controversial, and that's changed a lot, partly because people realized it was wrong, and quite frankly, if somebody makes a lot of money on something, then it must be right." Really, Alex, really. So we've changed the world by humiliating people and getting rich. It's the most effective way for social change to happen. Humiliate your enemy and make them poorer. That's the mentality of Alex Karp. And remember Peter Thiel's dislike for competition. Peter Thiel talked about how if you're going to go into business, you need to be a monopoly so that you don't have any competitors.
You always want to aim for monopoly, and you want to always avoid competition.
Peter Thiel jokingly said that Palantir isn't a front for the CIA is a front for Palantir. And remember, Palantir was created with In-Q-Tel CIA venture capital money. It went probably a decade or more without making any profit at all, losing money, with the CIA being like its only customer. But now look at how much Palantir stock is worth. It's outrageous how quickly that has happened. And I think that Peter Thiel is definitely somebody that we need to keep an eye on, because he does fly under the radar, and yet look how powerful he was. It was Peter Thiel who launched J.D. Vance's political career. It was Peter Thiel who gave him the $15 million to run for Senate, and then it was Peter Thiel who introduced J.D. Vance to President Trump and segued him into the position of being the vice president. And so I think it's very interesting to see how he maneuvers. Nobody can say that he's not a very smart man, but also deeply disturbed. The enemies in question were Silicon Valley virtue signalers. In 2017, Google won a contract for the US military's Project Maven, integrating AI into battlefield operations. Public backlash ensued, and Google flinched, not wanting to be associated with automated mass death. So Palantir took over Project Maven, with Karp calling Google's unwillingness to be associated with war a loser position. Silicon Valley is now coming around. Desperate not to be seen as losers, they've replaced virtue signaling with something else. Among Detachment 201 is Chief Technology Officer of Meta, a company that, under Zuckerberg's direction, once aimed to appear cuddly and non-threatening, but has now pivoted to wanting to appear imposing, brash, and, as Zuck himself suggested, aggressively masculine, right? Because when you think of Mark Zuckerberg, I'm sure you all think aggressively masculine. This is the Palantir effect, and its implications extend far beyond Zuckerberg's MAGA makeover. A new common sense is taking hold in the Valley. Companies that once flamboyantly postured as social justice warriors are now currying favor with the Trump administration and welcoming criticisms along the way, taking them as a badge of honor, proof positive that they're not total pushovers. To heed public criticism is to bend the knee to the woke, which Alex Karp calls the central risk to Palantir, America, and the world. And remember, Alex Karp gave an interview where he bragged about how Palantir single-handedly stopped the rise of the, quote, far right in Europe. It's outrageous.
Well, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the COVID vaccine and saved millions of lives globally. We built what we call multi-constellation, and what's often called the digital kill chain.
Armed with this new anti-moral sensibility, tech is dissolving into the pulsating nexus of MAGA, crypto, combat sports, and the military. This merger of the Silicon Valley overlords and the federal government, the military in particular, was exemplified by the list of corporate sponsors at the president's recent military parade, which included Palantir. It literally said brought to you by Palantir, weapons manufacturer Lockheed Martin, the global data mining conglomerate Oracle, founded by Larry Ellison, also a CIA cutout like Palantir, the crypto platform Coinbase, and Form Energy, a new energy drink company created by Dana White, who is the CEO of the UFC, but also is a member of the board of Meta. Of these, Palantir is the administration's darling. This administration has showered it with federal contracts hefty enough to elicit a letter from Democrat lawmakers asking the company to explain and justify itself. Of particular concern are Palantir's apparent moves to fulfill the administration's request that the company create a unified database on American citizens, consolidating information currently scattered across different agencies into a single dossier index that critics worry the administration could use for surveillance and political repression. Yeah, and just wait until how many years go by and you get a Democrat president in power. You know that this is going to be used to go after any dissidents who criticize the government, and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you are on. Palantir has received surprisingly little public scrutiny, disproportionate to its status as the West's AI arms dealer. Israel's war in Gaza brought more negative press than usual. I wouldn't refer to that as a war. I would refer to it as what it is, a genocide. Palantir sold Israel tools that analyze massive military surveillance and intelligence data to help the Israeli military rapidly generate lists of targets for airstrikes, resulting in countless civilian deaths. When confronted by a Palestinian woman and accused of developing software used to kill civilians, Alex Karp flippantly said, "She believes I'm evil. I believe she's an unwitting product of an evil force, Hamas." Palantir's profile has risen further now that the administration is tapping it to carry out its most frightening designs, from domestic mass surveillance to automated war. Much of the American public has been concerned, but the stock market, for its part, has responded to Palantir's shady federal contracts by rewarding the company. Palantir has been the best performing stock of 2025, increasing 140% since the administration took office. And now I want to get to something that has not really been discussed. Musk is helping U.S. intelligence turn thousands of satellites into a planet-wide brain to spy on everything all the time. This is an article by Boltzmann Booty published on his Substack, which I will link in the video description. We're not going to read the whole thing because it is quite long and tedious, but I highly recommend you do so. We'll go through the recap. Elon Musk is using his unparalleled space launch infrastructure to construct Starshield, a proliferated constellation of hundreds of NRO spy satellites that are designed to communicate with Starlink, his existing network of thousands of communications satellites. This means that more than half of the active satellites in the sky are facilitating an NRO SpaceX mass surveillance program that is intended to provide near continuous imagery of literally the entire planet for U.S. intelligence agencies, reportedly at even higher resolutions than previous projects. If the NRO was just spying through keyholes before, they've now thrown the metaphorical door open. This massive flood of data will require the NRO to deploy new techniques to keep up. Quote, once you go to a proliferated architecture and you're going from a few satellites to tens of satellites to now hundreds of satellites, you have to change a lot of things. And we're in the process of doing that, Scalise said. With so many satellites, it means that it's no longer possible for an individual sitting at a control center to say, I know what this satellite is doing. So we have to have the machines to go off and help us there. We need artificial intelligence, machine learning, automated processes that help us do that. We will deliver data in seconds, not minutes, and not hours, Zeribinski said. This may be a sly reference to integration between the Starshield constellation and Sentient, the NRO's ultra-secretive research and development program to synthesize vast and varied streams of data with AI for automated satellite tracking and targeting and intelligence analysis. Intriguingly, documents obtained via FOIA by John Greenwald at the Black Vault indicate that Sentient was already operational and being used to detect and record anomalous objects in the sky by 2021. Then again, the degree of collaboration between private AI companies and U.S. military and intelligence agencies has utterly exploded in the last year or two. During that span, major providers like Google, Meta, OpenAI, and Anthropic, among others, have all revoked self-imposed bans on using AI for evil and ecstatically prostrated themselves before the United States security state. Several major players, among them SpaceX, OpenAI, Palantir, and Anduril, were, as of December, reportedly in talks to form a consortium to collectively bid on U.S. defense contracts. I note this just to speculate that the AI coordination required for Starshield will probably be achieved through a hybrid public-private effort, rather than just relying on whenever the NRO has managed to secretly cook up with its Sentient program. And you know, it strikes me that in the big, beautiful bill, as they call it, there is a provision that prevents the states from regulating AI for 10 years. And I wonder if this has something to do with that. Black Sky, a satellite imagery company that has been described as Sentient's unclassified doppelganger, has already been known to be working with both Palantir and the NRO. Palantir, founded and chaired by Elon's former business partner and fellow spook billionaire pretending to fight the deep state Peter Thiel, offers access to software it calls Meta-Constellation, which is intended to harness the power of satellite constellations to empower decision makers on Earth. I did not turn up any direct NRO Palantir contracts, but that is not surprising given the extreme secrecy surrounding the NRO's activities. So putting it all together, Musk is working with arguably the most secretive spy agency in the United States to construct a global artificial intelligence surveillance brain made of hundreds of spy satellites designed to interface directly with Musk's 7,000-strong Starlink constellation. This means the majority of satellites in the sky are now facilitating the largest geospatial surveillance program in human history, and that program is poised to balloon further in the immediate future. Simultaneously, Musk and his business partners and allies have somehow managed to convince tens of millions of people that they constitute a revolutionary vanguard of government transparency, exposing wrongdoing and tearing down the ancient regime, to quote Peter Thiel. Seriously, the devil you know. Yeah, exactly. So I just thought that was interesting, and I wanted to share this with you guys that, look, this is happening in the background of everything. And like I said, this is a very long article. I am going to include all of the sources for the video in the video description, and I really recommend you read this full article to get an idea of just how insane the telescopes that they're using, these spy satellites, how insane they are. The fact that you could, according to them, see a dime on the roof of the Washington Monument from space, from these satellites, is deeply concerning, and that they are facing inward, these eyes in the sky, all pointing down on us, spying on us in real time, and there's literally nowhere you can go to get away from this. There's no opting out of it. These satellites literally blanket the entire Earth and space and monitor us continuously. I find that to be deeply disturbing, because think about, these tech companies now have access to that information because they're working, of course, with the government. So that is a scary level of power. We have to continue to keep an eye on the tech oligarchs as they continue to take over more and more and build their global surveillance state. But that's it for now, and I'm interested to know what you guys think, and I hope you all have a good day.